answer a knock at the door, and without warning, you're taken prisoner.
He puts the gun up to me. He's like, I'm gonna shoot you right now.
Or you show up for work, then a madman bursts in with a gun and a grudge.
She was laying on the ground, and I thought, oh my God, he's gonna shoot her.
We'll go behind the headlines with exclusive interviews as survivors recount the heroic measures that made the difference between life and death.
Please don't. Please don't. Please.
I Was Held Hostage. Next. Ashley Ware grew up a typical small-town girl in Frazee, Minnesota. When Ashley wasn't swimming or fishing, her mother entered Ashley in beauty pageants.
My mom always thought I stood out since I was a kid.
Hello, good evening. My name is Ashley Ware.
Perhaps it was Ashley's pageant experience that taught her to be calm in stressful situations.
Ashley and I have been friends since we were probably in like 2nd or 3rd grade. She's always been kind of a think on your feet kind of gal. She's a strong person, and I know that she can come through anything.
Ashley's inner strength would serve her well, long after her pageant days were over. By 2008, 23-year-old Ashley had a lot to look forward to. She was engaged to Stefan Froese, a German citizen she'd met on a college trip to Europe.
Stefan worked behind the front desk of the hotel that our class had stayed at. And literally, when I walked in, we locked eyes, and it was love at first sight. You know, we just knew.
While Stefan remained in Germany waiting for a marriage visa, Ashley lived in Fargo, North Dakota. She pursued her dream of a medical career.
At a young age, I started working in the nursing home. I saw how the other nursing assistants got to interact with the elderly people and help them, and I love that. I think nursing is where my heart is. It's what I'm good at.
Around 8:30 on the night of April 3rd, 2008, Ashley was getting ready for work as a nurse at a local retirement home.
And that's when I heard a knock at the door.
I didn't actually see a face through the glass at the time. I saw like a figure. I walked down and answered the door, and my life changed from there.
The stranger at the door was 28-year-old ex-con Vincent DeGidio. DeGidio had spent most of his adult life in prison. In early 2008, he completed a 9-year sentence for robbery.
Mr. DeGidio's prior criminal record was pretty extensive. It was clear that he was somebody who had been involved in the system for quite a period of time.
Ashley didn't realize it, but Vincent had been to her home before.
Ashley had a friend who knew Mr. DeGidio. He was coming over to her residence to try to meet that friend on that night.
Knowing me, small town, Midwestern girl, it's cold outside. I open the door like, hi, can I help you? Who are you? Kind of thing. And so I'm like, well, here, come in. And I kind of close the door, and I'm like, are you okay? You know, can I do something for you?
Ashley told police at first she wasn't too concerned. Before Ashley knew it, she was in grave danger.
He says that I'm giving him a ride as he has a gun held to his belly. He took me down the stairs, kind of led me down to my car.
It was like a scene out of a movie. He made me get in the passenger side and then into the driver's seat.
Ashley went on to tell police that DeGidio directed his hostage to drive to Moorhead, Minnesota, just across the river from Fargo.
She was thinking all the time. She was kind of relying on some of her things she had learned from nursing to just keep him calm and keep him talking. He was pointing the gun at her and saying, if you speed and the cops pull you over, I'm going to shoot a cop. I'll shoot you.
Vincent told Ashley to pull into an empty hardware store parking lot.
First thing I said was, okay, well, good luck to you. Bye. He said, give me your keys. And he grabbed my phone from the center console, and he says, get out of the car.
According to police reports, DeGidio planned to take Ashley to a camper parked in a fenced-off field behind the store.
I said, well, where are we going? And he said, we're going to an RV where I'm going to rape you and kill you. I felt shocked. I couldn't believe that a guy was actually saying this to me. I was going to do whatever I could to make sure that man did not touch my body.
The two arrived at a gate behind the hardware store. Ashley made her move.
I just felt like something in my gut, and it just said, go. So I'm like, oh, here goes nothing. So I turned around, I opened that gate, I slammed it, and I just ran. And I ran in zigzags in case he was gonna pop me, and I was just waiting for it. I remember just like squeezing my butt cheeks together in my back, thinking, okay, here it goes, he's gonna shoot me. Just waiting for it, and he never did.
But Digidio did catch up to her.
He puts the gun up to me. He's like, I'm gonna shoot you right now if we don't go back. I started thinking, oh God, what am I gonna do next? So then I pretended like I was having an asthma attack. I'm trying to like look around and figure out, okay, what do I do next? Where do I go?
Then Ashley noticed an auto parts store more than a block away.
I saw lights on it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna run for it.
Ashley made it to the front door of the store. She was muddy and out of breath.
The employees had just locked the door because it was closing time.
We heard somebody knocking on the glass. She was standing there. We weren't going to let her in at first because we didn't know what was going on.
They came up to the door and they opened up a crack and they're like, can I help you? And I kind of pushed the door and I'm like, move it, mister. And I just ran in and ran behind the front desk.
By the time the employee was opening the door to talk to her, Digidio had caught up with her.
According to police reports, Digidio also forced his way into the store before employees could shut the door. The desperate gunman now had 3 hostages.
He had us all go into the back, and then out of the blue, he said, give me all the money. It was almost like robbing the store was an afterthought. I was extremely scared.
The clerks gave Digidio the cash. Digidio gave his hostages an order.
And he's like, get in there, I need to shoot you guys. I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna shoot you. At that moment, it's like, either walk into that room and get shot, or at least try to get away.
When we return, Ashley Ware stares death in the face.
I saw the gun, he had the barrel, and it actually had turned, and it was facing me.
On the night of April 3rd, 2008, 23-year-old Ashley Ware and 2 employees of an auto parts store were being held hostage by a gun-wielding ex-con. That's when Ashley put up the fight of her life.
I bit him, I put my arms around him, I just started punching him, punching his head.
The fight was on, and I think she just had an incredible adrenaline rush at that point.
I had a good grip around his head, and I'm just like shoving up under his nose, applying pressure, just beating on him. I saw the gun, he had the barrel, and it actually had turned, and it was like facing me. And I took my hand and I moved it away. I'm like, okay, you guys, get the gun out of his hand, just get the gun out of his hand.
All I could see is, okay, she's doing pretty good herself. If a gun's being aimed at me, 2 people are around the trigger, I'm not gonna go running towards it. So at that point is when I called 911.
I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I could have just got my head blown off here. And then all of a sudden, everything just went black.
And I saw her fall off his back, he pistol whipped her, and he ran out of the store.
Police arrived on the scene just moments after Digidio fled.
There was items that were knocked off from the shelves. There was broken pieces of her fingernails from clawing at him and punching him.
She was able to give specific descriptions of his height, his build, his ethnicity, everything about him, including his name.
The manhunt was on. Police decided to check out the apartment of Vincent Digidio's sister.
Some of my deputies went to that location just on the chance that he might be there. When they did arrive on the scene, they were just walking up to an apartment building, and without a lot of forewarning, he came out of the building and just started shooting.
Police chased Digidio through a residential neighborhood and onto a golf course.
They told him to put his gun down and to stop shooting, and at the point when he didn't and he raised his gun up again, then officers fired on him and brought him down.
Digidio survived the shooting and police took him into custody. He was charged with kidnapping, robbery, and attempted murder. After the incident, Ashley Ware became a local hero.
She's an inspiration to other women to be able to think so clearly as to what was happening and to be able to assess the situation and to do it with such a faith that she knew she was going to be okay.
Knowing that she held her own and helped save 2 other guys' lives and her own, I really wasn't surprised.
She kept saying, Mom, anybody in my situation would have done the same thing. The humility she had for what she had done, I was feeling overwhelmed with where did this strength come from? And the pride and the, oh, thank God she's safe.
Being back here, it brings feelings of anger, but things have changed here a lot since everything happened, so it's not as hard to drive by this area and to look at it as it was the first couple months to the first year after it happened. It's giving me closure, though, coming back here. It's good to be back.
Despite her show of strength, Ashley dreaded the task of breaking the news to her fiancé, Stefan, who was still 8,000 miles away in Germany.
We talked every day before, and all of a sudden I couldn't get a hold of her anymore, and I knew something was wrong.
I didn't tell him until a day and a half after it happened. It was hard for him to hear it. He just felt sick to his stomach that he couldn't be there.
I was so angry, I couldn't do anything. Our visa was already pending, so which basically means I wasn't able to come and visit her. I was trapped in a cage. It was the worst feeling anybody could ever feel.
The couple was desperate to be together. Stefan wrote letters to the U.S. Embassy, the German Embassy, and even the FBI to expedite his marriage visa.
I wanted to raise attention to this case, and it actually made a huge difference, I guess, because 2 weeks after that, we got approved.
3 months after the ordeal, Stefan was finally able to move to the United States.
I didn't think at all about what happened to her. I just was amazed to finally see her again.
The following March, Vincent DeGidio had his day in court.
He pled guilty to the kidnapping and aggravated assault against Ashley, as well as the felon in possession of a firearm, and then also pled guilty to the attempted murder of a police officer and the aggravated robbery.
DeGidio received almost 30 years in prison, but he never revealed why he took Ashley hostage that night. In addition to his prison sentence, DeGidio suffered consequences from the crime that were profound and permanent.
He was shot in the right shoulder, and that bullet deflected off from the bones in his shoulder and lodged in his spine, and it paralyzed him from the chest down. So if he survives that sentence and gets out, he'll still be a prisoner in his own body.
In the summer of 2009, Ashley and Stefan were finally able to have their dream wedding.
It was a typical big, fancy American wedding. It was one of the most beautiful days of my life.
Oh, my wedding day was amazing. When we look into each other's eyes, it's just kind of something that words cannot describe. Like, we are just so lucky. We're very thankful.
Despite her nightmare, Ashley forgave the man who took her hostage.
Being angry and holding judgment doesn't make anybody any better. It just develops into worse things and hurt and bitterness.
I hear a lot of people that tell me, you could empower women, but honestly, if anyone's in that situation, just fight back.
Coming up, a school board meeting turns into a chaotic fight for survival.
She was laying on the ground, and I thought, oh my God, he's gonna shoot her.
Bay County, Florida is one of America's most popular spring break destinations. Panama City is the seat of government for Bay County. That's where, on December 14th, 2010, the school board convened for what they thought was just another meeting.
Okay, advertise revisions to the 10-11 organizational chart.
Around 2:13 p.m., the meeting agenda changed radically.
All of a sudden, this gentleman gets up and just kind of walks up there, and it took us all by surprise. Well, what's he doing, and who is this guy? Mr. Duke came to the podium area, and that's when he started spray painting the V on the wall there.
My motion that everybody in this room, except them assholes behind that counter, hit the road.
I think we were all in shock. I don't think anybody said anything the whole time he was spray painting, because we were, what's this all about?
In a very smooth motion, he then turned back to the board and at the same time pulled a gun out of his jacket pocket.
Leave. You may leave, you may leave.
Everything changed from that moment on.
56-year-old Clay Duke was an unemployed massage therapist and ex who once served 4 years in prison for stalking a former wife. Duke brought a 9mm Smith & Wesson automatic handgun to the meeting. There were 13 bullets in the magazine and 44 more in his pocket.
He told everybody to leave except for basically the men that were setting up at the board.
He pointed the gun to the board secretary and told her to leave. Then he pointed the gun at me and told me to leave. So we both exited.
We really didn't know what his point was at first. He was obviously very angry, but we knew he was serious when we saw that gun.
At that point, there was nothing between Clay Duke and 6 helpless hostages.
When he came up behind us and around to where we were, you could see it in his eyes, and he made it very clear that he was going to kill us or kill himself.
School board member Ginger Littleton felt compelled to act.
As I started to leave, I turned back around, and my guys were turned around in their chairs, completely exposed. And at that point, I knew that in a few seconds, this guy was just going to take them out very simply and very methodically.
Armed only with her purse, Littleton decided to lay it all on the line.
No,
He pushed me down, and at that moment, I'm thinking, that didn't work, and I don't have a plan B.
Ginger, out of here. Ginger, go on. I didn't see her until she swung at him, and he just basically just swatted her like a fly, and she was laying on the ground, and I thought, oh my God, he's gonna shoot her.
I remember being on the floor, looking at his knee and thinking, this is probably not gonna end very well for me.
Amazingly, the gunman let Littleton leave, again.
Lucky for me, he was not going to kill a female, and he told me to go, which I did.
News of the hostage situation inside the boardroom quickly spread.
Yes, we're at the Nelson building, and there's some man here with a gun who came into the board meeting. Okay. So most of us just ran out of the boardroom quickly, but he's holding the others hostage. Okay.
Cops were still minutes away. Tragedy could strike at any moment. But it turned out, help was already in the building.
My job here is District Safety, Security, and Police Chief.
Mike Jones is a 20-year veteran of the Panama City Police Force and a former school board member himself. Jones was planning to attend the meeting to discuss an item on the agenda.
I was notified by my cell phone that there was a person in the building in the board meeting that was armed with a handgun. Upon arriving here in the boardroom, I'd done a quick look through the doors and observed one shooter. I said to myself, this is going to be bad. Go to your car, get your bulletproof vest on. And I knew that if I didn't get the vest and a larger gun with more ammunition in it, I wouldn't survive that gun battle.
Meanwhile, the agitated gunman continued pacing.
He repositioned himself back in front of the dais, which did give a barrier between the school board members and Clay Duke and his gun.
He basically came around back to the front of us and had all of us as hostages. We were setting ducks. I mean, there wasn't anything we could do.
Superintendent Husfeldt had one option: try to reason with an apparent madman.
It had something to do, we knew, with his wife being fired, but I had no idea what he was talking about.
Who's your wife, Rebecca?
Sir, I don't know her.
Fired her back in January.
Duke's estranged wife, Rebecca, lost her job as a special needs teacher in early 2010.
He made it very clear that he thought we knew what he was talking about, and we had no clue what he was talking about. Tell me what your wife did. If you're gonna kill yourself or kill us or whatever, at least let us know what's going on, because I'll be very honest with you. I swear, I don't know who your wife is or what she did. When he first started talking to us, I was pretty sure I was gonna get shot. Wait, listen. I'm the one that signed the paper, right? Okay. I don't remember, and I don't know who she is. But let them go. I'm the one that did it. We could eventually hear the sirens, knew the police were coming to do something, but we had no idea how much time we had before he started shooting.
That's when time suddenly ran out.
I've got a feeling that what you want is the cops come in and kill you because you're mad, because you said you're gonna die today. But why? This isn't worth it. This is a problem. Please don't. Please don't. Please.
Coming up, a hail of bullets, a blood-soaked boardroom.
It was just an enormous amount of firepower that was released in that room that day.
In December 2010, Clay Duke, an ex-con with an apparent death wish, held 6 men hostage at a Bay County, Florida school board meeting.
Just listen to me for a minute. I don't want anybody to get hurt, and I've got a feeling that what you want is the cops to come in and kill you because you're mad.
Outside the boardroom, District Security Chief Mike Jones faced an excruciating decision.
I could hear the police sirens in the background, and I was thinking, oh boy, my backup's coming, they're gonna be here in a minute, and I kept waiting. And then I saw Mr. Duke square up and point the gun at the superintendent, and I knew I had to go. I couldn't wait any longer.
Please don't. Please don't. Please. I knew something hit me, and I went down to the ground immediately because I thought, well, I'm shot and I'm not going to stay up here and let him shoot me again. Mike came in the back door after the first shot and started shooting at him.
I could hear the shots being fired, and what I remember most was realizing that someone was shooting back and that help, whoever, whatever it was, had arrived.
I struck him and shot him 3 times as he was shooting over the desktop, and as the 3rd shot struck Mr. Duke, he went down. He was on the floor and was firing rounds exactly where I had been standing.
I'm laying on the ground saying to myself, I know I've been shot, but I don't hurt. I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to be hurting somewhere.
The entire gunfight only lasted 15 seconds. Duke himself brought the battle to an end.
Just as I come up in the aisleway to engage him again with my hand, both hands on my gun, he put the gun to his head and pulled the trigger, taking his own life. When the firing stopped, I walked down the aisle to approach him, and then all of a sudden I saw Superintendent Husfeld and the board members come up from behind the counter, and my first thought was either I'm dead and in heaven or he's alive.
That's what he wanted right there, Mike. I was trying to talk to him. I knew it.
What a body.
I went to my hands on my knees. It was just unexplainable, really, all the feelings that my body was going through at that time. And when the superintendent approached me and put his arm around me and hugged me and told me everything was going to be okay, I could not believe that he was alive. And that's when I lost it.
Within moments of the shooting, the Panama City Police Department was on the scene.
On the ground, please! Hey, everybody on the ground! He's gone. Where's he at?
When they came in, they recognized me immediately. Detective Chris Taylor said, "It's Mike, he's okay." And I told Chris I'd done the shooting and handed him my weapon.
But everybody that responded to the scene, from the detectives and officers, couldn't have handled it, I think, any better.
Clay Duke fired 11 shots at Mike Jones and the school board members. Incredibly, no one was actually wounded.
And I know he pulled the trigger, and I know he shot at me. So why am I not dead or wounded? Well, I knew God was in the room with us. I just didn't know he was standing right in front of me.
We'll take a look at the notebook that bullet struck. It hit a notebook right in front of him. And actually, the paper stopped that bullet from striking Mr. Husfeld, which is truly amazing.
Investigators tried to piece together facts about the dead gunman.
Upon doing a search warrant of his home, was able to locate the movie, V for Vendetta. He had a large calendar on a wall in one of the rooms in his office and had the V with the circle on December 14th.
Now, we didn't find a note or anything left by him, but we do have his video in his own words that he told the school board, which is, I'm going to die today, and so are you.
I believe Clay Duke went there that day with the full knowledge in his mind he wasn't going to leave that building.
I think Mr. Husfeld, he's a hero in this incident. His goal was to get people out of there alive and get himself out of there alive.
I don't consider myself a hero. Mike Jones is the one that did not have to come into the boardroom.
I'm not a hero. Any cop I know today would have done the exact same thing that I done.
Without him there, I have no doubt that the entire school board would have been shot, possibly killed.
Emotions ran high after the incident.
Being a law enforcement officer, you always think about this day, and he was somebody's son and somebody's father. I don't know the man, but my heart goes out to that family.
The Bay County School District now has new security measures in place.
We've made some procedural changes. We've made some physical changes to the room and to the building that some you'll notice, some you won't.
We have armed guards in the boardroom now when we have meetings.
And for school board members, the healing process continues.
After school came back into session after the holidays, and the first board meeting in January was emotional.
If you're not careful, something like this can consume you and overtake you. We required everybody to go through counseling in the building, at least one session. You know, we've been watching each other.
Ginger Littleton even found a way to turn the tragedy into something positive.
One of our local television stations called me and said, "What do you think about putting the purse on eBay?" It was auctioned off. It went for $13,100 for Mike Jones in the salvage Santa process.
What he's done for 20+ years is collect bikes and toys and fix them. And for years, that's been a lot of these kids' only really good Christmas present has been these bikes that he fixes up.
The walls of the meeting room have been repainted, the bullet holes repaired, and the members of the Bay County School Board are once again focused on the future.
The main thing is that we're here, we're thankful to be here, and we're carrying on the business of educating children again, which is what we want to do.
Coming up, a quiet night at home becomes a terrifying hostage ordeal.
They grabbed me by the back of the hair, put 2 guns to my temples, and shoved me to the floor.
November 21st, 2000. Vista, California, just north of San Diego. It was just another quiet evening at home for 35-year-old Michelle Renee and her 7-year-old daughter, Bria.
We were getting ready to make homemade pizza, and my daughter said, "Can we play Super Mario?" And I said, "Yeah, that's a great way. Let's just unwind."
Michelle was determined to give Bria a happy upbringing, the upbringing Michelle herself never had.
My childhood was pretty rough. There was just a lot of violence and a lot of fear and a lot of control. I ran away when I was 15, almost 16, and I snuck out in the middle of the night.
For Michelle, life didn't get easier. She held a number of jobs in her teens and 20s. For a time, she even worked as a stripper.
It was a part of my life that I really never shared with anyone.
Eventually, Michelle settled on a career path, working in a bank.
It was a 13-year road for me to go from being a part-time drive-up teller to being an assistant vice president and regional sales manager and then running a branch. I'm climbing the corporate ladder and I'm being a single mom. I was really in an amazing place in my life when everything just shattered.
Michelle, Bria, and their roommate Kimbra were in for a life-changing night of terror.
We were just sitting on the couch playing Super Mario, and we heard a sound that I have never heard. When we turned in the direction of that noise is when we saw 3 men, all dressed in black, masks, rushing towards us, and they were lined up one after the other, kind of SWAT style. And they grabbed me by the back of the hair, put 2 guns to my temples, and shoved me to the floor.
According to police reports, the intruders bound Michelle, Bria, and Kimbra with duct tape.
I honestly thought they were there to rape us and kill us and steal everything from our house. I realized that they were going to hold us hostage for a long time and they were going to be there overnight.
I was just like, I'm going to be okay, my mom's going to be okay, and I just kept like telling myself that everything was going to be fine.
Michelle later told police the men who broke in brought guns, spears, and even a Rottweiler. But they soon revealed something more terrifying.
The ringleader actually took out the sticks of dynamite from a bag. He held up these sticks and he said, "I'm going to push this button and you will disintegrate and your daughter will disintegrate."
According to police reports, as the 3 hostages sat helpless, Michelle said she picked up details about the intruders.
I could see his eyes, and it hit me like an absolute bullet that this guy had come into my bank and sat at my desk and pretended to be a potential client. I just immediately started in my mind keeping track of everything, what he was wearing, how tall he was. I was measuring him to the tiles on the bathroom walls, so if I lived, I could actually give as much information away to the police as I could.
Michelle told police, as the night wore on, she overheard other important information.
They had walkie-talkies. They would communicate with this woman that was on the other end of the walkie-talkie outside. I heard her say, "Hey, Chris." And again, it just solidified for me that this was the same person in the bank, and the woman on the other end of the line was the woman that walked in to get him.
Court records reveal that the kidnappers set their real plan in motion just before dawn.
The ringleader came over and he said, "It's time to get up and get ready for work. I need to put this on you," and he had the dynamite sticks. I just remember hearing the sound of the duct tape. They taped it so tight that it was digging into my ribs and digging into my back. And then they said, "It's your daughter's turn." And they started duct taping dynamite sticks to her and said, "You have 10 minutes to say everything you have to say to her. Because if you F this up, it'll be the last thing you will ever say to her."
Coming up, mother and daughter held hostage. The explosive details you won't believe.
He didn't take the dynamite off of my back. I don't know if I'm gonna blow up this breath, or this breath, or this breath.
On a November evening in 2000, 3 masked men broke into Michelle Renee's home. Michelle, her daughter, and their roommate Kimbra were held hostage overnight. According to court records, in the morning, the captors duct-taped sticks of dynamite on the backs of all 3 prisoners. Then they revealed their true intentions.
They actually said, "We're here because we know that you're the manager of the bank down the street and you're gonna rob it for us." I was completely shocked. I could not believe that this was happening.
Michelle soon found herself driving the short, familiar route to work. Only this time, she wasn't alone.
The person who went with me was the ringleader. The plan is that I was going to go to the bank, wait for the Brinks truck to arrive. I then took my briefcase and I walked over to the vault and I set my briefcase down there because they had rolled up a duffel bag and shoved it down into my briefcase. I saw the Brinks truck pull up. I knew I had 5 minutes to clean out that vault and get them what they wanted, or that was going to be it for us.
While Michelle was in the middle of a dramatic bank heist, her 7-year-old daughter Bria and their roommate Kimbra were still being held hostage in their own home.
This is the closet where they put me. They taped my feet when I was in here, and I just sat here and waited till she got back.
Thinking about Bria back at the house and what they were doing to her, I would have to just keep telling myself, you can't think about that right now. You have to focus on what you need to do so that you can get out of this and get back to her. In the vault at that time was $360,000, and I ended up taking it all. I just cleaned out the vault, and I took the duffel bag and I swung it over my shoulder, and I started walking out of the branch.
According to court documents, the ringleader instructed Michelle to drive to a nearby apartment complex.
He didn't take the dynamite off of my back. And so immediately I thought, he lied. He lied. I don't know if this step is gonna be my last, if I'm gonna blow up this breath, or this breath, or this breath. What am I gonna find when I get back to my house, if I make it back to my house?
Before the kidnapper drove off with the money, he told Michelle where he would leave her Jeep. Michelle found the car a few blocks away, with the keys still inside.
I was told to go straight home. I wasn't sure what I was gonna find.
I remember when she came back to the house, I heard her say Bria. I was yelling that I was still here.
My initial instinct was just to grab her and hug her and start taking off the duct tape. Just to know that she was not physically harmed was a huge, huge relief for me. The only neighbor that we had at the time was our neighbor at the very, very top of this hill. And we had to keep pounding on the button and saying, open, open, please. We're in trouble, we need help, we need help. And to call 911.
Explosives experts soon determined the sticks of dynamite that seemed so terrifying were actually broomstick pieces painted red.
Under the circumstances of what was going on, it was completely believable to me that she thought that she truly had dynamite on her back.
From the beginning of the investigation, Michelle provided valuable information about her attackers.
She recalled the eyes of one of the individuals, and she believed that this was the person that had been at her bank the day before to open an account.
One detail Michelle didn't have to remember was the man's name. Incredibly, he left his business card when he visited the bank the day before the kidnapping. The ringleader was identified as Christopher Butler.
Christopher Butler had prior convictions. He had robbed 3 banks in Georgia and did time in the federal penitentiary.
Within 2 weeks, police apprehended Butler and his girlfriend, Lisa Ramirez. They each faced multiple charges, including kidnapping and burglary. Both pled not guilty. Still, prosecutors were building a serious case.
We had overwhelming physical evidence. We had ski mask and the black gloves and black clothing in the trunk. We also had straps that were from the money taken from the bank. And when the police served a search warrant at the house that Ramirez and Butler had been staying at, they found materials that it was very obvious that they had made the simulated dynamite. Christopher Butler's print was on that.
Regarding Lisa Ramirez, police thought they had something even more damning, from Lisa's own mouth.
I had made a joke. Well, I don't understand why bank robbers go in there and hold people up. They could just stick a fake device on their back. That came from me.
According to police records, Ramirez also gave authorities 2 other names, Christopher Huggins and Robert Ortiz. Police tracked down the suspects, who ultimately faced the same charges as Butler and Ramirez. They also pled not guilty. With an overwhelming amount of evidence, the prosecution was poised for an open and shut case. Everybody was in for a surprise. Coming up, a courtroom shocker.
It was all over the papers, and it was in front of the jury. They are legally allowed to destroy your life.
On November 22, 2000, Michelle Renee was forced to rob the bank where she worked, while her daughter and roommate were held hostage. 18 months later, the first 2 alleged kidnappers, Lisa Ramirez and Christopher Butler, stood trial.
I felt good that they were off the streets and they were not going to be able to harm anybody else.
In a blow to the prosecution, Lisa's videotaped interview with detectives was ruled inadmissible.
The judge's ruling essentially was her statement was so intertwined with the activities of Christopher Butler that Christopher Butler could not receive a fair trial.
Suddenly, cracks developed in the state's rock-solid case. As the trial progressed, the defense attacked the prosecution's star witness. Both suspects testified that Michelle Renee was actually in on the robbery.
One thing I have been told is that there was a white lady that was involved in it.
Yeah, who's that?
I think her name was Michelle.
There was even a bigger bombshell. Alleged ringleader Christopher Butler claimed he and Michelle were having an affair.
Knowing what evidence was stacked against him, he had an opportunity to read the reports, to read the grand jury transcripts, and I believe Butler came up with this whole concocted story.
It was outlandish, it was ridiculous, and it was extremely hurtful. All of these things are being written in the paper.
The defense wasn't finished. they unearthed some of Michelle's long-held secrets.
The last linchpin of the case was Michelle and Michelle's credibility.
They dug into my past suddenly because I was a stripper when I was 20 years old. It made me a horrible person. It was all over the papers, and it was in front of the jury. They are legally allowed to destroy your life.
And that wasn't the only damaging evidence the defense presented about Michelle.
She had a background of filing bankruptcies that you would not expect from a bank manager. And so we were able to use that. Maybe she had a motive to take the money that was missing.
The defense has a strategy that's one of the oldest strategies in the book. Their job is to make you look so bad, and that's what happened to me.
On the stand, it seemed Michelle was her own worst enemy.
Michelle's reaction to my questioning was like a dream come true for a defense attorney. She wanted to argue with me all the time, which from my perspective was perfect.
One of the most outlandish claims by the defense was that I helped to orchestrate this entire thing. And it was so absolutely crazy. It was hard for me to learn that I was actually a suspect.
Michelle fought to keep the ugly innuendos from Brea.
I would just fall to pieces, and my brother Dave was actually there to help me shelter Brea from everything that was going on. And I just tried to protect her as much as I possibly could.
After 5 days of deliberation, the jury found Christopher Butler guilty of conspiracy, robbery, and kidnapping Brea and the roommate Kimbra. Butler was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms in prison. In a stunning development, Butler was found not guilty of kidnapping Michelle Renee.
Several jurors said they had a reasonable doubt. They weren't sure. She may have been involved, maybe not.
Even more surprising, the verdict regarding Lisa Ramirez.
The final verdict against Lisa was not guilty on everything. She was released, and she walked out a free person that night.
It's just absolutely mind-boggling how a case like this with so much evidence against them, how could this have happened?
2 months after the first verdicts, the remaining 2 defendants, Christopher Huggins and Robert Ortiz, were both convicted of kidnapping and robbery and sentenced to multiple life terms.
That was something worth celebrating because, again, they weren't going to be able to go out and harm anybody else.
All I was hoping is that they would get sent to jail forever. So once the trial was over, I was super relieved.
Michelle and Brea faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives.
After the crime, I didn't want to leave my house. I didn't want to leave my mom. My life was completely changed.
This situation made me realize that the most important thing I could do was to be an amazing mother to my daughter.
Michelle and Brea sought help through therapy.
The main thing I learned from my therapist was to be strong, and when I would have a nightmare or something, to just breathe and that everything was going to be okay.
In 2006, Michelle co-wrote a book about her experience. She also turned her life-threatening ordeal into a new career. Michelle founded Rock to Stop Violence. The organization sponsors events and fundraisers to support children and families who have suffered abuse.
I've always loved rock and roll music, and I thought I really want to do something powerful with the message of nonviolence and anti-violence through music. People discovering that they can heal their lives through music, art, and fashion, and get back to their roots, get back to doing the things that they love, and get back to having fun.
Michelle Renee, Ashley Ware, the school board members of Panama City, each faced unimaginable terror, but each fought back, and as a result, their lives have been transformed far beyond the shocking